Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
Well, here we are again. Welcome everyone to the Switch for Good podcast. I am here with my lovely, beautiful, amazing co-host, Alexandra. Hi.
Hi, Dotsie.
So we're kind of doing this little thing, this little series of our favorite documentaries, our favorite shows, our favorite books, because people have been asking about that on our Facebook group. So if you're not a member of our Facebook group, and you are on Facebook, which we realize everyone isn't, but it's an easy place to connect, do join us. So today I'm going to do my 3 favorite documentaries. And I got to say, to start off, I really am passionate about documentaries. It's really the only film category that I truly love. And I'll watch a documentary from any and all walks and aspects of life. I'm kind of a curmudgeon with fiction. Like, I don't like fiction books, novels. I don't like fiction, really anything so much, which is, I don't think that makes me sound really, really boring, but I guess I don't have a great imagination, and I just don't like stuff that's not real. Like, I get in the middle of the movie, and if it's fiction, especially sci-fi, this couldn't actually happen, and I don't want to go down like a path of something that hasn't actually taken place. I feel like I just get so entrenched and embedded in documentaries. It's like, this is real, this happened, and I just get transfixed. So I'm going to give you 3 of my faves. The first one is a documentary film that's directed by my good friend, Luis Sejoyas, who also directed Game Changers. But this was his first film, which is amazing because the documentary won the Academy Award in 2010 for Best Documentary Feature. This film, for those of you that haven't seen it, because I bet some of you have, it's a call to action. It's a call to action to halt the mass dolphin kills and captures and change Japanese fishing practices, and to inform and educate the public about captivity, and also the increasing hazard of mercury poisoning from consuming dolphin meat. And I was sitting with Louis a while back, and he was, telling me some stories. And there's one short story from this film that is not in the film, that just is so moving. In the film, you'll see the star really is Rick O'Barry, who was the lead dolphin trainer at SeaWorld forever, a very, very long time. And his soul shift moment that he had, because in this film, you see him post SeaWorld and the work that he's doing to save these beautiful creatures. But his soul shift moment happened when he was at SeaWorld, and he had a long time dolphin that he trained for many, many, many years. And she gave birth. And he was sitting on the side of the dolphin pool, hanging out, feeding her, and just like he had for many years. She gave birth, and she came back up after giving birth, put her nose on his lap, on his thigh. She probably was communicating something to him. And then she swam to the bottom and never came back up.
Oh my
And
God.
that was his soul shift moment, because what that told him was, I mean, she killed herself, right? Because she never came back up for another bit of air, and she can come back, you know, she has to come up to the surface to get air. But the extreme confinement that they are in at places like SeaWorld, and just the utter depression that she was experiencing that led her to end her own life. And so if you press play on The Cove, you will kind of get the rest of Rick O'Barry's story, trying to save these animals, because the Cove is one of the places where they trap dolphins and do other things to them. But some of them go around the world to places like SeaWorld to be trained and entertain people. So that's a fantastic one, kind of an oldie but goodie. My next one that is not an oldie, but it's a goodie. This might be my favorite documentary of all time, My Octopus Teacher. And it did win. I didn't even realize this until I looked it up, that it won Best Documentary Feature at the 93rd Academy Awards, which I think was either 2019 or 2020. But this film shows it's by filmmaker Craig Foster, and it just shows this unbelievably rich relationship that is built between a guy who is in swimming every day in the South African kelp forest, obviously in the ocean, and with a very common wild octopus. And they forge this very intense, very beautiful relationship. He started swimming in this kelp forest, a couple of days, a week, and then he became transfixed with her, and he went back every single day for many, many days, and you'll learn how many in the film. I have seen it 4 times. I will probably watch it 4 more times. I don't think that there's any film out there that really is able to explore the diversity of and the complexity of relationships that other beings can form and have the capacity to make with each other and even with us. So for everyone that says to you, animals are stupid, please share with them My Octopus Teacher. It's just extraordinary. And then my third one, which completely takes a left turn, a hard left from what I've just been talking about, but is close to my heart, is a documentary from 2020 called Athlete A. This documentary follows a team of investigative journalists, basically from the Indianapolis Star, as they broke the story of Dr. Larry Nassar's sexually assaulting young female gymnast for many, 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 many years, and USA Gymnastics knowing about it and keeping it quiet. And it's just a story that is real, that happened, that I think that we need to be more aware of, because it's not just at the Olympic level that this abuse, and not just sexual abuse, but mental abuse and emotional abuse takes place when we view athletes as products, when we view athletes as the vehicles to elevate our own careers. And I experienced that inside the Olympic Committee. You are a product. You are only a medal, I felt, to many of the higher ups. And they keep their jobs based on how many medals come home from each Olympics, or they don't keep their jobs. I've seen many get fired after they weren't able to, help the team or the individual produce a medal, and get raises when they do. And so I just think it's something that parents maybe mostly should be really quite aware of for their young humans that are involved in elite level sports, to be aware, to ask questions, be nosy parents, stay in it, ask your child questions, and just stay hyper aware. And I think that's what this film does, is it shocks you into the awareness of the truth behind closed doors. So that's my third one.
Thank you. I've seen the first two and also love them. I haven't seen Athlete A, so I'm going to watch that. That's going to be my next documentary for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoy those three, and let us know, right? Let us know how you liked them, and let us know your favorite docs on our Facebook group, right?
Yeah, we want to hear yours.
Share. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's go to our guest. This is a great one. Today, we are getting fit and informed with UK-based sports nutritionist TJ Waterfall. As the founder of the Meat-Free Fitness blog, TJ uses his degree to dispel the myths surrounding the plant-based diet and its role in optimum performance. He works with many elite athletes and everyday folks as well to help them get their nutrition dialed in and harness the awesome power of plants. His new book, The Plant-Based Power Plan, is a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to be at their best. He's also written for a plethora of magazines, including Men's Fitness, and still finds the time to teach at the Demuth's Cookery School, the top vegan cooking school in the UK. So we are just really amped to have you here. I've been looking so forward to this. Welcome to the Switch for Good podcast, TJ.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me on. I've been really looking forward to it as well. So yeah, excited.
Good. We have so much to dive into. We've got like a million questions written down. But I want to start with the book because I had the pleasure of getting introduced to you via David Goldman, who is a lovely human and brilliant, beyond all understanding. And if it's in my opinion, he is the dietitian, nutritionist, PhD. David's one of those with 77 letters behind his name for the Game Changers film. And that's how I got to know him. But so he told me about you and told me about your new book, and I bought it immediately. Here it is for those of us that are watching on you. What was your motivator to write this, and where did you see the holes that really led you to say, hey, it's time to give some answers to people about optimum performance in nutrition?
Well, the whole premise of the book is to help people to thrive on their plant-based diets. And that's both in terms of health and in terms of their performance and recovery as well. And like you very eloquently said in the nice introduction there, I work with a whole range of plant-based elite sports people, which is amazing. It's what I really love to do. And there's nothing more satisfying than helping sports people, plant-based sports people, beat their rivals and just be the best advocates for the plant-based diet. It's the most satisfying job in the world. But I can only see a certain number of people one-to-one in any given day. Whereas with the book, I hope to reach, thousands or more, hopefully, people, to give them the same advice and strategies that I use with elite sports people, and really break down the next steps. I guess I'm getting loads and loads of messages on a daily basis from people saying, I understand the health and performance benefits of a plant-based diet, but I just don't know what to do next. And I guess that's where the book comes in. It just takes you through the next steps, breaks down the science into easily understandable tips and advice and strategies to help as many people as possible perform at their best. And it's for elite level sports people, but it's also for people like me and my friends who just enjoy exercising recreationally, but we just want to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we've talked to so many extraordinary dietitians and nutritionists and medical professionals on this show, and many of them adopted a plant-based diet after reading the research. What was your woke moment, right, when you said, hold on a minute, and you decided to switch from eating animals over to eating a predominantly plant-based diet?
Well, I actually made the switch before I studied nutrition. And I should say at that point I had done a joint honours degree, so a 3-year bachelor's degree in human biology and psychology. So I had a good, basic understanding of nutrition and how the human body and mind works, but I hadn't gone, really deep into nutrition at that stage. And so I made the switch initially purely on ethical grounds, so animal welfare and environment. That was my initial driver. And actually, like I said, it was before I studied nutrition. And like so many people around the world, I thought when I switched to a plant-based diet, I might lose some of my strength and fitness. I've always been quite sporty. I've always enjoyed exercising. And I thought, oh, when I make that switch, I might lose, some of those gains that I'd worked hard for. But those ethical reasons were more important to me at that time. So I made the switch anyway. Funnily enough, I didn't see any deterioration in performance. I carried on making improvements, much to my surprise, my pleasant surprise. Then I went to study nutrition and did a master's degree in nutrition at University College London. It's currently in the top 10 universities in the world. So it was really intense, full on. It was a year full-time studying nutrition. And I just began learning more and more about the health benefits initially. And then, in recent years, all of the performance and recovery benefits too. So really, I just want to share that with as many people as possible, because I know there are still lots of people out there, like I was about 7 or 8 years ago, thinking that when I make that switch, I might, see decreases in my performance, where actually the opposite is likely to be true.
You were vegetarian first and for ethical reasons, and then you went vegan. Was that for ethical reasons too, or was it because of the health reasons?
That was also for ethical reasons, predominantly. Yeah. So, I guess like many people, I sort of started reading and watching documentaries and so on about the sort of animal welfare issues involved with consuming meat. And so I moved to a vegetarian diet. Then I carried on digging, learned more about the ethical issues involved with the egg and dairy industries. And it was just a natural progression from there. I actually felt much better after moving to a vegan diet, because obviously, there's, quite a few potentially detrimental compounds in dairy and eggs as well. So it was a progression. I'd say overall it took about 2 years. The switch from omnivorous to vegetarian was overnight. The move from vegetarian to vegan was a bit more of a gradual process over 6 months or so. But I'd say it was about a year or year and a half on a vegetarian diet before moving to fully vegan.
I'd love for you to give us the pitch on why is just being vegetarian not enough for optimum nutrition? Because as you well know, the dairy industry has been using athletes to peddle their product for many years, right? Saying it's an optimal recovery fuel. And we've talked about the studies, quote, air quotes that I'm using, that they base those reasons on. And then, secondly, a lot of vegetarians will kind of replace their meat with more dairy, right? Refined carbohydrates too, but even more dairy. So why is being vegetarian certainly not enough for optimum nutrition, optimum output, optimum performance in just everyday life?
Well, I mean, my view is that moving from an omnivorous diet to a vegetarian diet, it's a step in the right direction. If you're adding more whole plant foods to your diet, that's an incredibly powerful thing. The risk is, and actually this is something I did for the first year or so, wherever I would have had meat in a meal, I was replacing that with either cheese or eggs. So I was having cheese and eggs like several times every day. If anything, that's probably worse than for your health than having some meat with your meals, because cheese especially is very high in saturated fat, really high in salt, some other potentially detrimental components there as well. But nonetheless, I think my intake of of plants did increase, going from omnivorous to vegetarian. So like I said, I think it's a step in the right direction. But moving from vegetarian to vegan, obviously you're removing that high intake of saturated fat, salt, salt and cheese as well, some other components that can be detrimental. And so you're kind of, removing those detrimental things, but also you're increasing your intake of these incredibly powerful whole plant foods, which have these incredible health benefits, incredible performance benefits too. So there's kind of two aspects to it. It's removing those sort of negative aspects, but also replacing that with even more whole plant foods. It's just almost every time you eat, it's an opportunity to be incorporating more of these whole plant foods, things like pulses, tofu, tempeh, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds. If you're removing cheese and eggs from your diet as well, it's just even more opportunity to have even more of those kind of foods.
You work with athletes, so I imagine that they have the same concerns that you had when you gave up meat and I shouldn't say gave up, because it sounds like a sacrifice, but actually you benefited when you benefited from before you realized the benefits of being meat free and then dairy free. What do you tell them in terms of course, Dotsie and I have asked this question a lot of our guests, the protein question. How do you help them feel more comfortable and more committed to taking out the animal products?
Well, firstly, I should say I'm actually very lucky, because most sports people who come to me, they know that I'm a plant-based nutritionist. So usually they're actually already sold on the idea of a plant-based diet. I don't really have to convince people to make that switch, luckily. But nonetheless, that protein concern is often still there. So I do find myself talking about it most days. And I guess there's two kind of aspects to the protein concern based on two common misconceptions. And those misconceptions are, firstly, people tend to massively overestimate how much protein they need. And people tend to massively underestimate how much protein is in whole plant foods. So we could deep dive into protein if you want. I could talk about it all day, to be honest. But so here in the UK, the average recommended intake it's based on your body weight. The government have calculated this requirement to meet the needs of 97.5% of the population. And you can calculate it yourself. It's just 0.75 times by your body weight in kilograms. And so for average sized people, that's about 50 grams a day for women, about 55 or 60 grams a day for men. And there are loads of studies assessing the dietary quality of people on a plant-based diet across the UK, across Europe, across the US and Canada. And they show that people on a plant-based diet, on average, they have about 70 to 80 grams of protein a day. So it's already well above that sort of recommended level, even without making a conscious effort at all. So that's the level needed to meet the needs of most people. If you are an athlete, it does help to increase your protein intake, depending on what kind of training you're doing, the frequency and intensity of the training. But in general, it's quite well documented sports nutrition advice that if you're an endurance-based athlete, kind of at the elite level, then increasing that protein intake up to about 1.2 times your body weight can be a pretty optimal level. If you're a strength training athlete, increasing it up to about 1.6 can be beneficial. So I can give you an example based on me, if you like. I'm about 80 kilos, give or take. And so if I were a strength training athlete and I multiplied my weight by 1.6, it gives me 128 grams of protein a day. And that's still very easily achievable. That's a very high intake, but it's still very easily done on a plant-based diet. And bear in mind that most athletes who are training that much, they're burning through a lot of calories. So they're having to eat a lot of food anyway. So naturally their protein intake is going to be higher anyway. So yeah, you speak to a lot of people. I've had conversations with people at the gym. They say, oh, my personal trainers told me to aim for 3 times my body weight in kilos. And the science is pretty clear on this. Going up that high doesn't make any further difference to, how you're going to recover and repair and grow from your training.
And it can be detrimental actually to your health.
Yeah, it can be detrimental to your health. And also it's quite a waste of time and money. You have to invest quite a lot to have that high a protein intake. Whether you're eating meat or not, that takes quite a lot of effort, probably lots of supplements. The higher protein foods tend to be more expensive. It's going to involve a lot of cooking. So in terms of return on your investment of time and money and effort, it's just not worth it. And like you said, it can be detrimental to your health, especially if it's coming from animal-based proteins.
I know a fair amount of unhealthy vegans, and some of them, I really would say most of them, eat a whole food plant-based nutrition regimen about 90% of the time, right? So I'm not talking like French fries and beer and like fried vegan chicken, but they don't move at all, basically. And from my perspective as a retired athlete, I think most of the reason why I move every day and sweat every day is for my mental health. I know I need that dopamine hit, right? I know how powerful the endorphins are as a mood stabilizer. There's just so many reasons, really, from the neck up of why I'm exercising some days, really hard, right? I'll kind of go into the pain cave or go into the zone to just, really get that release. But from a health perspective, I've read multiple times how critical movement and exercise is, just as important as diet. Sometimes some people say even more important. And so if you were to talk to one of my friends who are so committed to that nutrition program, how would you convince them that it's just as critical to start really moving every day?
Well, you're absolutely right in that it is really, really critical. It's really important, and equally as important as your diet, I would say. There's a whole abundance of really good quality research showing the potent health benefits, both physical and mental, of regular exercise. And it could be movement of any sort. If you're not very fit and you find going for a 10K run quite daunting, then walking or some yoga is any form of exercise that suits your kind of fitness levels is really highly beneficial. And in fact, I've put a whole chapter in the book on, because the book's about plant-based nutrition, but I felt it was too important not to mention those other lifestyle factors, which are going to have equally as important results for your health and your performance and recovery. So exercise is one of them, but also managing stress, getting adequate quality and quantity of sleep as well. And also maintaining and nurturing your social connections. And that one sounds a bit wishy-washy, but there is actually loads of really good quality scientific studies linking sense of social connectedness and lots of health outcomes. So exercise is definitely on there. It's really, really important. One area which I've kind of been researching recently, which is really fascinating, is how exercise can improve your gut health. So lots of people exercise purely, they see it as a means to weight loss. And of course, that's one aspect of it. Is, that can be a benefit, but it's about so much more than that. And one of those other areas is gut health. So when we exercise, again, there's very strong science, really good quality research linking levels of exercise with the health of your gut microbiome. And that's so important, because your gut microbiome influences the health of pretty much every other system within the body. There's even links with mental health. And there's a number of ways in which exercise can result in improvements in your gut. One of those is that when we exercise, we produce lactic acid. Some of that lactic acid enters into our bloodstream, and some of the lactic acid goes transfers from the bloodstream into the gut. And we have lactate-loving gut bugs. So they're friendly, healthy gut bacteria, and they thrive on lactic acid. They use that as a fuel source. And interestingly, when they do that, in turn, they produce these amazing beneficial compounds called short chain fatty acids. And those enter back into our bloodstream, and they have incredible health and performance benefits. So it's like exercise is one of the aspects that helps take care and nurture a healthy gut microbiome. And then your gut microbiome in return helps with your health and your performance and recovery as well. So it's this amazing kind of symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationship we have with our gut there. And exercise is a big part of that.
Yeah, I love learning about that science and all the little buggers that live in our gut, and the ones that we want to feed and the ones that we don't want to feed. Can we go up from the gut to the chest and talk about the heart and arteries? Because a lot of times my friends will say, oh, I'm not going to get heart disease. I'm not going to get type 2 diabetes. I'm not going to get anything because I'm on a whole food plant-based diet. Although they may be at less risk, what would be the science behind the argument for, no, you absolutely have to move some every day to keep your arteries clear and unclogged and inhibit the possibility or decrease the possibility that you would move towards type 2 diabetes?
Well, yeah, I mean, diet plays a big role. Exercise can be a huge beneficial tool for lowering risk of heart disease, cardiovascular disease as well. And again, very, very strong evidence. When I talk about evidence, again, this is something I touch on in the book, which is how to weigh up the evidence, because it's very easy to cite one study that might happen to support your argument or your biases that you might have. But there's levels of quality when it comes to evidence. And at the very top, the kind of is known as the gold standard of nutrition research, as something known as meta-analyses. And well, a meta-analysis, like I said, it's the gold standard of scientific research. It's where researchers take a question.
Oh, meta-analysis.
Meta-analysis, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, my British accent.
Love it. No, totally. I thought you said metro, fine. And I was like, this is great. No. Thank you for clearing it up. Please go ahead.
Okay.
But do tell our listeners what a meta-analysis is.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So yeah, it's where researchers take a research question, like for instance, what we're talking about, the effect of exercise on risk of cardiovascular disease, for example, and they take they use a systematic approach to find all of the studies that have been done to answer that question. And then they combine the results from all of those studies. And by the way, these are only studies that are published in peer-reviewed journals. So they're good quality studies already, but then they combine the results from all of these studies to give you an overall result. And it gives you a really good, clear picture of the entirety of the scientific literature on that subject. And it takes away that risk of just relying on one specific study. It's known as single study syndrome. Because any one study might have had problems with their methodologies. They might have had too few participants and not come up with a totally kind of representative result. Whereas, yeah, meta-analysis, it might combine dozens of studies and with overall huge numbers of participants. So yeah, it's the gold standard of scientific research. And there are meta-analyses showing the link between exercise and decreased risk of many, many diseases, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cardiovascular disease, cancers even. So it is really, really important, I think, to move your body when you can. It doesn't have to be sort of exercise and pushing yourself to the limit every day. But getting some movement in every day is a good idea for sure.
Thank you.
Since on this topic of people who, want to getting people into better habits, you said you had degrees in biology and psychology, so maybe you'll be able to answer this question. We have listeners who are not elite athletes, but they want to get healthier, and that's why they're listening to us. So that's why I asked this question of you. If someone is struggling with food, how much do you see that that's not necessarily about the food, but about other parts of their life that aren't going well, like unhappiness or lack of connection with people, boredom, lack of purpose? As someone who works with people in food, I know elite athletes are already very motivated, but a lot of people really struggle. And I think sometimes we focus on the food a lot instead of asking, okay, why are you relying on this junk food and when you could be eating more in a more wholesome manner? Do you have any thoughts on that, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. People often just focus on the food, and it's all very well telling someone to do something, but actually, creating those habits is a whole nother thing. So, yeah, I mean, from a scientific point of view, there are clear connections between levels of sleep. So when you don't sleep well, there's a direct correlation with your hunger hormones. Your ghrelin and leptin levels, which control your hunger, go completely out of kilter. That's why if you've ever had a bad night's sleep, you often crave junk food the next day. I don't know if you've kind of experienced that. I know I have. We've got a young daughter. Touch wood, she's sleeping through the night now. But for the first year or so, there were quite a few sleepless nights, and the next day I was always craving the more processed, less healthy foods. So, something as simple as improving your sleep routine can have a big effect on a kind of indirect effect on your nutrition. The same with stress as well. So, of course, stress, a lot of it is external and can't be helped. But I guess what we can help is how we manage that stress. So again, things like mindfulness and meditation, again, they sound a bit wishy-washy, but there is actually loads of really great quality science and research showing the incredible health benefits of doing that, and how they can almost reliably help to reduce stress levels. And so that's another aspect that someone could incorporate to, again, indirectly, I guess, help with their nutrition as well. And there's going to be, aside from nutrition, there's going to be a whole host of other health benefits of improving your sleep and managing your stress levels. So yeah, there are definitely two aspects. Yeah, social connectedness is another one as well. I guess, yeah, if you're isolated, if you feel isolated, then you might be more prone to making less healthy food choices. Again, there are studies showing that when people eat together around a table, they tend to eat a bit more healthily. When you eat in front of the TV, you're not focused on your food. You're kind of eating almost subconsciously. You're not registering what's going into your mouth, and there's a huge visual aspect to eating. And if you're kind of eating subconsciously, it's not kind of registering with your brain, I guess, that you're that you're feeding yourself, and so you often remain hungry even after you've eaten a good meal. So it's very easy to overeat when you're eating in front of the TV. So I would also recommend, it's something I'm guilty of sometimes, I have to admit, but we do try to set time aside to eat together as a family as often as we can.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting about that is as an introvert, a fairly extreme introvert, when I go out if I'm out to dinner with strangers, like let's say I'm going to a conference or going to speak or something like that, and I'm at a table with strangers, I will overeat. And we oftentimes watch the news when we eat dinner, and I never overeat in that case. Yeah. Because I think I'm just trying to find something to feed the uncomfortableness that I'm experiencing. And that's it's always when I overeat. So I kind of like almost want to avoid those types of, I mean, who wants to have dinner with people you don't know anyway? Well, a lot of extroverts do, but
Yeah.
I do not, and it's a wonderful opportunity for really interesting connection and new people and new relationships, which is what, introverts struggle with that, in many areas of their lives. I know,
course,
but
yeah.
that is that's my overeating time.
Well, I'd say you're the exception to the rule then, because for most people, when they're surrounded by other people, they're less likely to pile their plates up really high, and they're kind of conscious of being polite and eating more slowly because you're talking, things like that. So obviously there's exceptions to every rule.
I was just sharing that for all the 15% of the population out there that's introverts totally. Like me, because I just wanted them. That's where my tough deal is. Would you explain to us, Alexandra went into the protein question with you, but what I feel like still not very many people understand, how much protein we need, but I feel like it's starting to get to be less of a conversation. Like people at least have started to realize that there's protein in plant foods, right? Which is before it was like, oh, there can't be any protein in plant foods. I'd love to go into amino acids, understanding them. They're the building blocks of protein. Why are they important? And how does a vegan diet provide plenty of them, especially the essential ones?
Yeah, well, great. And actually that just reminded me, when I was talking about protein earlier, I said there were two common misconceptions, and I went into one of them, which is people overestimate how much protein they need. Right. But the other one is in relation to this, it's people massively underestimate how much protein is in whole plant foods. So, there's the sort of typical high protein plant-based foods. So things like legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, they're amazing because they're high in protein, but they're not just providing protein, they're amazing nutritional packages. They're providing iron, calcium, zinc, lots of B vitamins, tons of antioxidants and fiber. They're just incredible nutritional packages. They're brilliant. There's things like tofu and tempeh, nuts, seeds, things like lentil pasta. All of these things are really, really high in protein. And I think people, pretty much understand that, but people really underestimate how much protein are in other foods as well. So things like grains, whole grains, vegetables, even fruit, there's a little bit of protein in. So, for instance, like a slice of bread contains about 4 or 5 grams of protein. Vegetables, a cup of cooked broccoli contains about 4 grams of protein. A cup of cooked green peas has about 8 or 9 grams of protein. So you can see if, the average requirement in the UK at least is, 50 grams a day for women, 55 or 60 grams a day for men. Even without any of those high protein foods, it would be easy to meet that just with, things like grains and vegetables and fruit and nuts and seeds. But if
you're eating whole foods, if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, it's super easy.
Yeah, totally. And I guess to answer your question about the amino acids, every plant contains all of the amino acids, including the 9 essential amino acids. So people talk about incomplete plant proteins. I don't think that's a great word to describe them, because it kind of gives you the impression that some plants don't have like completely missing some of the amino acids. Whereas in reality, like I said, all plants contain all of the essential amino acids. The only thing is that most plants are lower in at least 1 or 2 of them. And so, if you're eating a whole foods plant-based diet, if it's varied and balanced, luckily, different food groups tend to be lower in different amino acids. So the amino acids that might be low in many whole grains, for example, tends to be much higher in the legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas. And so by having, in any given day, if you have some legumes and you have some whole grains, you're going to be having a complete range of all the amino acids. And the same goes for lots of different other combinations, various nuts and seeds, vegetables even. And the science shows that you don't even need to combine all those all the amino acids in any one given meal. As long as you're having a variety throughout the day, then that's absolutely fine. The reason being, we have what's known as our free amino acid pool within the body, and that's because every cell in our body is constantly going under this turning over process. So cells go through, it sounds awful, programmed cell death, but it's quite natural. Different cells in different tissues have a different turnover rate, and they're replaced by new cells. It's part of the kind of constant repair process in every tissue in the body. But because cells are always being turned over, everything that they contain, including their amino acids, being made free and available. So if, for instance, you had a meal of, you had a bowl of rice for your lunch with nothing else, then yes, that rice might be low in one or two of the amino acids, but you've got this amino acid pool in your body to kind of compensate for that. So as long as, throughout the course of a day, you're having variation in your diet, then it's absolutely fine. And actually, it's quite rare that someone would just have a bowl of rice for their lunch anyway. You're likely to combine that with, either some tofu or pulses, vegetables at least, anyway. So yeah, it's really something you don't have to give any conscious effort to at all. But I like to talk about it more for reassurance than anything else.
Yeah, so relax, everyone.
Yes.
Getting all your amino acids. Yeah.
You spoke about timing and that in a whole day. Look at your nutrition for the whole day and make sure you get variety in. And that will solve all your needs for protein if you're eating whole foods, whole plant foods. Your book talks about nutrition timing. Is that different than that? Or tell us about nutrition timing, because people are interested in things like intermittent fasting and should they be snacking or fasting, or should they eat before or after workouts? Talk to us a little bit about what that means.
Well, it's actually, again, it's pretty well documented general sports nutrition advice, and it can be adapted very easily to plant-based nutrition as well. So nutrition timing, it refers to nutrition pre and during the exercise. So there you're really focusing on fueling the exercise as efficiently as possible. And then nutrition timing after the exercise, so kind of fueling that recovery process as efficiently as possible.
For a regular workout, an hour or so, what would you recommend eating beforehand and eating after? Some people like to eat on what they call
like a fasted workout.
Fasted state, yes.
Yeah. So if you're working out for an hour or so, then you don't have to worry too much about your nutrition ahead of that exercise. If you're training for 90 minutes or more, then it can be beneficial to think about your carbohydrate intake, just to make sure your glycogen levels are topped up as much as they can be. Maybe even fueling during the exercise as well to maintain those glycogen levels. But yeah, if you're training for an hour or something like gym-based work, then as long as you're kind of eating healthily throughout the rest of the day, getting enough calories from all of the main food groups, making sure you're getting carbohydrates in general, then that's fine. Post-training, again, there are, going back to meta-analyses, there are meta-analyses showing that actually the timing of your protein intake doesn't actually matter. So lots of people think there's, they kind of look at this time window, this opportunity window after exercising where you have to get your protein in, otherwise you're not going to benefit from all of this exercise that you've done. But there are meta-analyses showing that's not the case. By far the most important thing is your overall protein intake for the day. And also it's good to think about the timing of the protein, but over the course of the day. So, if you're shooting for, say, 100 grams of protein, it would be much more efficient to have that in maybe 4 meals spread throughout the day, rather than like 2 huge meals. Because after each meal, providing, maybe 30 grams of protein or so, you're really stimulating that muscle protein synthesis process. If you're only doing that twice a day, you're not kind of optimizing that as much as you could. Whereas if you're kind of stimulating that muscle protein synthesis process more frequently throughout the day, then overall you're going to be in that catabolic state for much longer. So that's the most important thing in terms of timing.
So am I hearing that you don't have all your protein in one fell swoop, but split it up more throughout the day?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay. In smaller doses.
Yes, but you don't want to go too far in the other direction, because if you were to be kind of grazing constantly throughout the day, then you wouldn't ever be taking in enough protein in one go to really optimally stimulate that muscle protein synthesis process. So you need at least 20 grams up to 30 grams to stimulate that MPS process optimally. So yes, frequently is good, but if you were sort of constantly grazing and never really stimulating that MPS process optimally, then yeah, that would be suboptimal.
I wanted you to help kind of bust another myth and help us understand salt better and its role in the body. So during Olympics, we ran this challenge, Eat Like an Olympian challenge, that was loads of fun. It had a bingo board, and every day we released the nutrition and the diets of 15 of the Olympians that were plant-based in the Olympics. And when we were preparing for the campaign and leading in and posting about it, get people to sign up to be able to receive all this fun stuff, fun educational, motivational stuff. Somebody said, well, I would imagine that most Olympic athletes don't pay attention to their salt, oil, and, not eating processed foods with chemicals in them, which, okay, that's probably pretty good. Not too many processed foods with chemicals. But this person, adheres to a completely like that no salt, no oil diet. And so I tried to educate that person just in the realm of salt, in understanding that it is an essential electrolyte for muscle activation, right? Your muscles firing, right? There's a literal electrical current that is running through our body at all time. And for muscle synapse and activation and firing to happen, you need all of your electrolytes. And some, as some athletes lose more than others. I didn't ever lose too much sodium in my sweat, but my teammates that did, and especially my husband does, he had to eat salt tablets when it was really hot, right? Because you could see he looked like a powdered donut after a race, because through his sweat came all of this sodium. So I think it's a bit dangerous information out there that a no salt regimen, if you move at all and if you sweat at all, there's got to be a balance. So can you help us bust that kind of myth on zero salt, and just help us kind of connect the dots so that we can understand the natural electrical charge going on in our body and what salt is used for, and that it's not something that you would completely entirely take out of your diet if you're moving, let's say, which is most of us moving to some degree.
That is a prime example of where there is quite distinct differences between sports nutrition and public health nutrition. So for public health nutrition, the message from governments and national health bodies is that for most people, they should be trying to reduce their salt intake, because most people do have far too much salt, and too much salt in the diet can lead to hypertension, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease risk. But for sports people, you lose a lot of salt in the sweat, as you rightly said. And salt's required for a lot of things. It's also really important for fluid balance. as well. So you can get seriously quite ill if you don't have enough salt, especially if you're sweating a lot. So the kind of criteria for people really to start thinking about their electrolyte intake if they're exercising is, are you exercising for more than about 2 hours, is the first question. Or are you a particularly salty sweater? So was it your husband, did you say? It ended up being very, very salty. So there are sweat analysis tests you can do, or you can just go very sort of rudimental on it, and ask yourself the question: when I exercise wearing a dark t-shirt, do I end up with like white salt marks when my sweat dries? And it doesn't happen to everyone, but if you do end up with those kind of white salt marks from the dry sweat on dark colored clothing, that's an indicator that you are quite a salty sweater. So your concentration of sodium in your sweat is quite high. So in that instance, it's also a good idea to think about your salt and electrolyte intake when you're exercising. And the third one is the conditions. So, is it hot? Is it humid? And if so, you're likely to be sweating a lot more. So again, important to think about your electrolyte intake. And yeah, it's really important. It's going to help with fluid balance. Like you said, it's a really important part of muscle function as well. So yeah, either an electrolyte drink. In the book, I've got a recipe for a homemade electrolyte drink, which, the sort of sports drinks that you buy, they're full of, added colors and sweeteners and flavors, preservatives. And so, yeah, they might be providing electrolytes and some carbohydrates, but other than that, not particularly healthy. But you can make your own one just with some fruit juice. So grape juice is a really great one because it's providing some carbohydrates. It's hydrating. I actually recommend diluting it with about 50% water, because otherwise the carbohydrate concentration is actually a little bit too high and it can be difficult to digest. So grape juice diluted with a bit of water. If you're making a liter, you could put maybe an eighth or a quarter of a teaspoon of salt in, depending on your sweat rate. And then, yeah, that's a really good sort of homemade sports drink. Is that simple. You're getting sodium from the salt, of course. If your salt is iodized, in fact, I think in the States, all table salt is iodized.
It doesn't have to be, but because maybe table salt is different from Himalayan salt, but
yeah. I mean, you can get all different kinds, rock salt, all different, but just when it's ground up, it's iodized. Like when they set it,
the regular salt that you get in the grocery
store. Table salt. So that's actually a good thing. It means you're getting iodine in there as well, and you lose some iodine through the sweat. So that's an important thing to try and replace. You're getting potassium naturally from the fruit juice. So grapes are high in potassium, so that's another important electrolyte. And grapes are super high in lots of different antioxidants as well. And again, there's some actually really good quality studies linking grape juice supplementation with improved performance. So there's all these amazing benefits, and you haven't got any of the kind of nasties, preservatives, sweeteners, colors that you find in the sort of commercial sports drinks. And it's a lot cheaper as well. So in summary, yes, salt is actually very important for sports people. It's two distinct messages between sports people and public health, I guess.
Yeah, there is quite a lot of evidence behind the performance and recovery benefits of tart cherry juice and beets or beetroot juice before exercise. Will you talk to us about those two foods, because they are powerful and they're both very easy and very inexpensive to access?
Yeah, and totally natural. It's amazing. So yeah, the two work in very different ways. So tart cherry juice, there's a number of whole sort of plant foods or extracts of whole plant foods that have been shown to have quite powerful performance enhancing effects. Tart cherry juice is mainly down to its antioxidant intake levels, sorry. So yeah, it's been shown to help with performance itself, and it's also been shown to help with the recovery process, because that antioxidant intake helps to combat the exercise-induced oxidative stress. And by the way, that's something that you can't replicate by taking antioxidant supplements. So antioxidant supplements,
Good point.
They can't replicate the complexity of plant foods, because in plant foods, yes, there's antioxidants, but there's thousands of other plant phytochemicals, many of which we've discovered, many of which are still to be discovered. It's just unfathomably complex. So by taking, one antioxidant in supplement form, it just can't replicate that. And actually, in supplement form, antioxidants have been shown to have a negative effect. They actually blunt the body's sort of inbuilt adaptive process to combat that oxidative stress. So yeah, tart cherry juice is one. Beets or beetroot is another incredibly powerful. It's known as an ergogenic aid, so it's a performance enhancing thing that you can be doing. It's quite amazing. There's various institutes, so the American College of Sports Nutrition, the Australian Institute of Sport, even the International Olympic Committee. They have this kind of tiering system where they grade different sports supplement products, and they put them into these sort of classification groups. And the top group is for those supplements which have the most scientific evidence showing that they're A, effective, and B, safe. And beetroot juice is actually in that top level of performance enhancing sports supplements. There's only, I think there's 5 or 6 supplements in there. So there's things like caffeine, creatine, beta-alanine, sodium bicarbonate, but beetroot juice, or I think they call it nitrates. But all of the studies on nitrates use beetroot juice because it's the richest source of nitrates.
So I know for sure that caffeine and sodium bicarbonate they're limited. You can only have limited amounts of them, and if you are over that's on the banned substance list. But they don't do that with beets, do they?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Phew. Not that it matters for me anymore, but those are some, obviously those are some powerful foods and components of food on that list. Sure. So I just want to make that case. Like some of them are literally illegal in competition at certain levels. So
I know what you mean.
Beets is in that group. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This kind of natural whole plant food. It's amazing. Incidentally, I think caffeine has been taken off the list. There's now no upper limit from the International Olympic Committee. I think there are in some other sporting governing bodies, but yeah, I get your point. It's like for beetroot juice to be amongst these, kind of potentially banned substances at certain levels. It's quite a statement, isn't it? So beetroot juice is one of the richest sources of nitrates. The body uses those nitrates and converts them to nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator. So it helps to widen and dilate our blood vessels. So it can really help with circulation. It helps us to deliver more fuel and oxygen to our muscles when they need it most during exercise. It's been shown to have pretty reliable performance enhancing effects. And the interesting thing is that you can use beetroot juice acutely, so you can take it just before like a specific event. But it's also been shown that habitually having lots of nitrate-rich foods in the diet, so beetroot, but also things like chard and lettuce and watercress, lots of these things that are naturally higher in a plant-based diet anyway, but habitually having them on a daily basis leads to long-term improvements as well. So you can use it as a kind of an acute performance enhancing aid, but also just having lots of those nitrate-rich foods in your diet daily can have beneficial results in the long term as well.
Mm-hmm. I like to use it acutely to be able to beat my husband on the mountain bike. Like he doesn't love beets, and I'll eat like a whole thing of them on Sunday morning before we go.
Nice.
It works because I'm just like, it's at least a 15% like uptick. I think the study that they showed in Game Changers that when I'm cycling, that study said it is a 14% gain. The study was shown that having the beetroot juice before exercise showed a 14% gain in endurance. Mm-hmm. So I would, yeah.
It's even been shown.
It's monstrous.
It's incredible. It's even been shown to have performance enhancing effects for strength-based exercise as well. So I think that there's a study looking at people doing bench press exercises, and those given the beetroot juice supplementation, on average, they got out like 2 or 3 extra reps of like 80% of their 1 rep max. Wow. So yeah, it can help everyone.
Your book, The Plant-Based Power Plan, has recipes in it, actually. Like you mentioned, you talked about your electrolyte drink. Tell us a little bit about, maybe you eat from that. You chose the recipes because of your own daily menus. Can you tell our audience your favorite breakfast, your favorite lunch, and your favorite dinner? And maybe if they're in the book too, all the more awesome, so they can make it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, all the recipes in the book are recipes that I regularly make. They're kind of staples in our household. And I also chose them based on the fact that they can help you meet your requirements for lots of the nutrients that I talk about throughout the book. So yeah, it's striking that balance. I've spent a few years of my life chefing in kitchens. So for me, it's really important to strike that balance between food that's really tasty and delicious and satisfying, but also the nutritionist in me that wants all of that food to be nutritionally complete and helping you to make progress in your strength and fitness. So I think all of those recipes strike that balance quite nicely. I mean, I'm a big advocate for smoothies. I have a smoothie pretty much every day. They have had a bit of a bad rap in the press in recent years, but I think that's because of the kind of commercial smoothies you can buy, which tend to be like mostly fruit juice, maybe some fruit pulp or puree added to it as well, and sometimes like a token, like 1% vegetables in there just to make it sound healthier. Right. So those kind of ones that you buy commercially are, they're pretty high in sugars. Whereas if you're making your own smoothie, it can be brilliant. You can have a good combination of fruits and vegetables. You can top it up with water or a plant-based milk instead of fruit juice. So it's, still hydrating. It still blends up nicely, but not quite as high in sugars. You can get some healthy fats in there. You can put some flax seeds or hemp seeds in there. You can get these wonderful combinations of foods. So again, something I talk about in the book is the absorption of certain nutrients and how you can boost that. So for instance, iron absorption can be increased by like 3 to 4-fold if you combine it with a source of vitamin C. So in a smoothie, I might have a handful of spinach or kale or spring greens. I think they're collard greens in the US. And might combine that with some mixed frozen berries, for example, or some fresh lemon or mango or kiwi. So that's that amazing combination of iron-rich food plus vitamin C. So it's a really highly absorbable dose of iron to start the day, along with those healthy fats, lots of different antioxidants, fiber, and everything else. So a smoothie I have most days. Curry, I'm a really huge fan of Indian cuisine. So there's a couple of recipes for curries in there. There's a really nice chickpea and spinach curry. So that's something. It's a pretty staple meal in our house. It's one of those things that's really great because you can batch cook it as well. And often with curries, they taste even better once they've been frozen and reheated. So if we're cooking that, I might like triple or quadruple the recipe, make sure there's lots of batches in the freezer. Then if I'm ever feeling a bit lethargic or I've had a long day at work and I can't face cooking, it's like a ready meal, but it's a nice homemade one that's really healthy. So yeah, a couple of curry recipes in there too.
Great. Well, I know people are going to be really interested in getting the book, and we have 5 questions to ask you that don't necessarily have to do with nutrition at all.
Okay,
they're
cool.
just rapid fire questions so that our audience can get to know you a little better,
Nice.
and maybe get some life advice. So,
Okay.
what is one thing you try to do each day that makes an impactful difference in your life?
Recently, I have been trying to meditate every day. And I try and do it in the mornings, literally just 10 minutes. And I find it really helps to kind of reset my busy brain and just a bit of time to reduce the stress levels, lower the heart rate, the blood pressure. So yeah, that has made a big difference in my life. I've been doing that for 6 months or so. And to begin with, I thought of it as a chore, but now I don't feel great if I don't do it. It's definitely embedded in my daily practice.
What is the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, someone told me once that fruit is really bad for you and that it's carcinogenic.
Okay.
So yeah, I had to really tell her. Well, I actually physically showed her the science to win her round. So
Right.
Yeah, don't believe that if for any reason you ever hear it.
What is one thing that you do to shake off stress? We heard about the meditation. Is there anything else?
Oh, it's exercise. So I'm the same as you, Dotsie. I don't feel right if I don't exercise in any given day, and it happens from time to time if I'm get too busy with work. And but yeah, most days I'll either do a bit of weight training or go for a run or a cycle, and it's almost like another form of meditation for me. But yeah, that sort of dopamine endorphin hit is something that I rely on, I would say.
Share something beautiful that happened to you in the last 24 hours.
Oh, it's got to be my daughter, waking her up, and yeah, when she wakes up with a big smile on her face, pleased to see you. It's just she melts my heart every day. She's one of the reasons I do what I do. I just want to create a healthier future for her and the next generation. So yeah, she's a big motivation for me for sure.
If folks want to take a look at TJ's beautiful daughter, just go to his Instagram page where he's got not only beautiful recipes, but lots of photos with her. And she is adorable. What is one good habit that you're proud to have cultivated?
A good habit that I'm proud to have cultivated. That's a difficult one. I'd almost say just cooking. Yeah, it's one of those things where if I don't cook on any given day, it just doesn't feel right. It's something that's kind of embedded in me now. It's almost like a therapeutic process. And I often try and practice gratitude while I'm cooking as well. So thinking about the ingredients, where they've come from, all the efforts and resources from all the different people who have grown, transported, delivered, sold the food. So yeah, I think that's something I'm glad to have cultivated for sure.
That is so beautiful. Well, we got to encourage again, everybody get this book, The Plant-Based Power Plan, increase, strengthen, and boost energy and perform at your best. And it includes 30 easy recipes, a few of them, which we just talked about. It's so fantastic. I got it on Amazon. Is that the main place that you want people to go, TJ, or where else can they get it?
I mean, it depends on your views. Amazon is tends to be the cheapest place. So for many people, that's the best. But it's in lots of independent bookstores as well. There's the Book Depository, which ships worldwide, and a few other ways to get it as well. So whatever suits your ethos and budget, I guess. It's also on. There's Kindle, and I recorded the audio version as well. So if you're more audio inclined, if you're not sick of my voice by now, then you can listen to it some more.
Oh, that's great.
Well, thank you so much, TJ, for being on our show. It was so informative. I know our audience has gotten a lot of wonderful health tips and science from you.
Oh, brilliant. I've really enjoyed it as well. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Hey, folks. Okay. Back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switchforgood.org. That's podcast@switchforgood.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review and zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.